Hello everyone, welcome to my channel ID Guru. My name is Anura and today we will be discussing some of the ID models. Before this, we have discussed the ADDIE model, which is one of the most popular models that all IDs use. But remember that it is not the only model. There are many more. So let's discuss some of the oldest models. To begin with, we will be starting with the Dick and Carey model. Just a minute before, let's take a slight minute to discuss the ADDIE model, which we have learned in detail previously. So the ADDIE model, as you can see on screen, has 5 stages: analyze, design, development, implement, and evaluation. So after all of these stages are completed, we can say that an e-learning product has been completed. So now, moving on to the Dick and Carey model, we can see that there are 9 stages. So instead of calling them stages, let us call them steps. Reason being that the Dick and Carey model does not have a bifurcation between the analysis, design, develop, implement and evaluation. However, if you will see, then the steps are somewhat similar. There is an overlap. So actually this model is more beneficial for IDs who are new to this system. Let's take a look at this in detail so it will be easier for you to understand. So the first step is the needs analysis. As we learnt in ADDIE, in the needs analysis, we determine the needs of the learner, that is your target audience. Basically, what is their desired learning outcome, their background, their education, so on and so forth. After you do a thorough needs analysis, you can move on to the design phase. But before the design phase, in the Dick and Carey model, what we do is we write the specific and measurable learning objectives for the course, not at the module level but at the course level, that is for the entire training. This is so that we have a clear understanding of what the learner should be able to do at the end of the training. Once the instructional goals are written, then we move on and take a look at the entry behavior. What is meant by entry behavior? Basically, you try and understand the learner's prior knowledge, their skill sets and their attitudes. So for example, in your audience, if someone is a graduate, someone is a postgraduate and someone is an HSC level student, in that case you cannot have the same examples for all of them. Also, if they come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages, then also you need to be careful while scripting it. That is why it is important to know their entry level behaviors. Once you know all of this, you can now move ahead and go ahead to write down the module level learning objectives as you can see on screen. You should clearly state what the learner should be able to do upon completion of that particular instruction. That is the module level learning objectives. You can be using Bloom's taxonomy to write this. After this, we come to the criterion test. Basically, you develop the assessment tools to measure these learning outcomes. So, you write your learning objectives first and then you write the assessment questions. Doing this one after the other helps the ID to actually do this more effectively. If you know the learning objective, then you can write the assessment question more easily and effectively. So you will be using them later for formative or summative evaluation whenever needed. But taking a step here to write them is quite useful in your journey of creating the e-learning product. The sixth step is now the instructional strategy. Basically, you need to plan the approach to deliver the instruction and support this learning. So basically, you need to think about what would be a best fit to teach students. So what should you do? Should you simply use it as a scenario, help them to put themselves in the place of the journey that they will be having ahead? For example, if they are going to be in the HR sector, then they need to actually deal with a customer who is troubled at the moment. So you give them a scenario based learning. Should you do that or should you think about something else? Basically, you should plan your approach. After this, you develop and select your materials. Basically, you get a lot of material under the name of source material. What you do is you segregate and you divide it. and later decide how to place it one after the other so that your learners have it easy in understanding. In the end, you have to decide where to place your questions. That is formative evaluation, which is non-graded. You simply take a pause and ask the learners if they have understood it here, till here. And if not here, then we can take a step back and go through the material once more. If you have understood till here, then we can move ahead. In the end, you have summative evaluation, which is a graded test. So you evaluate the overall effectiveness of the instruction after completing the entire course. So this is basically a graded test which would appear on your LMS. So remember that at any point of time, you can go and make adjustments and improvements based upon your evaluation results. If you feel that at any point of time there is some sort of a tweak that is needed, then of course you can go back and change step number 5 to step number 8. You can even go back and write your learning objectives again if at any point of time you feel that it is a slight misfit. So now let's take a minute to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of this model. So as you can see that it has a number of advantages, that is, it is not putting all of your steps into multiple stages which are a bit difficult to understand for newcomers. It is helping you break down the design and development stage of the ID model. So new IDs actually find this quite useful because from step number 1 to step number 9, it is easy for them to follow than having a lengthy analysis stage. So let me remind you that this is mostly for newcomers. This model provides 3 separate steps of the ID evaluation stage. So sometimes what can happen is that you may find it a little bit confusing. So having a breakdown of the steps versus having an overlap. It is advantageous to newcomers who find it a little overwhelming to have lot of stages and multiple steps within each stage. However, it has its own disadvantages too. Like I said, that there would be overlaps in some of the steps. Also, it does not distinguish between each step, and it does not include prototyping. If you must have noticed, between all of these steps, there is no scope for writing actually a storyboard or going back for feedback, coming back in a loop and revising it. So that part is not covered here. So there is scope for flaws or misunderstandings. And if that comes up at the end, that is at step number 9, then it will result in lot of rework. So this was the Dick and Carey model. After this, we will basically go ahead and learn the next model. Till then, I hope you had a good time and learned one of the most important ID models in your ID journey. So happy learning. Let's meet in the next video where I will teach you the next ID model.